Right now, nearly half of everyone earning over $100,000 a year is living paycheck to paycheck. Not broke, not unemployed, 6 figures, and still nothing left by the end of the month. If you've ever told yourself the fix for feeling stretched is simply earning more, here's proof it was never really about the paycheck. 2 people, same starting salary, the exact same raise every single year for 23 years, same lifetime income down to the dollar. One of them ends up with about $1.4 million, the other just under $380,000. A 3.5 times gap from identical income. Not luck, not the market, not a bigger paycheck. It came down to one decision made the same way every single time a raise landed. By the end of this, you'll know exactly what that decision was and the tested way to make sure you make it differently. Let's call them A and B. Both start at $50,000 a year. Both save the ordinary amount, 10%. You couldn't tell them apart, same paycheck, same first raise, same bank balance. The difference didn't start with the paycheck. It started with what happened in the days right after it landed. Here's what actually happens when your income goes up. And this part isn't about A or B, it's about you. A new streaming service, because what's another $10 now? None of it feels like a decision. It feels like upgrading to match what you've earned. Give it a few months, and it stops feeling like an upgrade. It's just what your life costs now. Psychologists call it hedonic adaptation. Your brain quietly resets what normal costs every time you make more. None of it ever looks reckless from the inside. You'd notice a raise that vanished into one big purchase. You don't notice a dozen small, reasonable ones. That's the trick. It quietly becomes your new floor, and a floor almost never goes back down on its own. Not weak will, just what a brain does, automatically. This is also the honest answer to the paycheck-to-paycheck number from the start. 6-figure earners aren't secretly broke. Their floor rose right alongside their income, so the raise never changed how rich they feel. Most people let that trick work on them every single time they get a raise. A few don't. That one difference is the entire story. Back to A and B. A is one of the few, spending barely moved year after year, even as the raises kept landing. B is like most people, spending rose right alongside income, so the savings rate stayed flat at 10%. For a long time, this looks like nothing. In year 2, the gap is a rounding error. In year 5, it's still barely visible. For most of the 23 years, A and B would describe their financial lives almost identically. That's exactly why it's so easy to lose this without ever noticing. The difference is invisible for most of the time it's happening, and then, one day, it isn't. Run the math out across the full 23 years. A 4% raise every year, everything saved getting invested at an average 7% return, and you land on exactly the numbers from the start. B, just under $380,000. A, about $1.4 million. Look at just the last year to see how it happened. By year 23, B is still saving a flat 10%, about $12,000. A, whose spending barely moved this whole time, is saving over $70,000 that same year out of the exact same paycheck. Not because A earned more, because A's spending stayed roughly where it started while the paycheck climbed underneath it. The entire gap was built one invisible raise at a time. This isn't just A and B, it's the whole country running the same experiment. The average American used to save around 8% of their income. Today, it's closer to 3%. Same pattern, same invisible leak. Researchers studying real self-made millionaires expected high-flying executives. Instead, the typical one earned an ordinary 6-figure income, around $131,000. Not an executive, just someone who never let spending catch up to what they made until the gap compounded into millions. So what actually separated A and B all the way back in year 1? It wasn't luck. It wasn't willpower either. Willpower is not a strategy anyone can rely on for 23 straight years without a single slip. It's the one decision we mentioned at the start. And there's an actual, tested way to make it automatic. Two behavioral economists, Richard Thaler and Shlomo Benartzi, found a way to bypass willpower entirely. Instead of asking employees to cut spending, they had people commit in advance to saving a slice of every future raise before it ever landed in their account. Nothing about anyone's current paycheck changed. No sacrifice starting today. Just a standing instruction. When the next raise comes, a portion goes straight into savings before it ever reaches a checking account. The results, tracked over the next 40 months, average savings rates for people in the program went from 3.5% to over 13%, nearly 4 times higher. Not from more discipline, from removing the one moment where discipline was ever required in the first place. That's the entire mechanism behind A's 23 years, minus the mystery. A just made the decision once, before the money ever became spendable, so there was never a rising floor to fight against. You can set up the modern version of this yourself in a few minutes. An automatic transfer that routes a percentage of any raise into savings or investing on the same day it hits, before your budget has a chance to quietly expand around it. Which means the version of you that ends up free was never the more disciplined one, just the one who made the decision once, before the raise ever showed up. You will get another raise at some point, maybe this year, maybe next. In the days right after it lands, your brain will run the exact same trick it ran on A and B in year one. It won't feel like a decision, just a natural upgrade to match what you've earned. The riskiest moment for anyone's money was never the month they were broke. It's the day a raise lands, because that's the one moment the choice is invisible. Willpower was never going to win that moment 23 times in a row. Staying broke was never a math problem, it's an automation problem, and now you know which decision that is. So here's the actual question. When your next raise comes in, are you going to make that decision in advance, or let your own brain make it for you, the same way it does for almost everyone?